Go to any major retailer's website right now. At the checkout screen, just before you pay, there is a button, Pay in 4, interest-free. No application, no credit check. It has been placed in millions of checkout flows since 2020. Today, it processes over $82 billion in purchases every year in the United States alone. At first glance, it seems to make shopping easier and more convenient. In reality, every retailer who puts that button on their checkout page is paying the company behind it between 4 and 8% of every transaction. That's 2 to 3 times what they pay to accept a regular credit card. These companies contractually ban retailers from charging BNPL users more than everyone else, so the retailer can't recover the cost from the people actually using the service. Instead, they fold it into their prices for every customer. Whether they paid with cash, debit, credit, it doesn't matter. If you've shopped at a store that offers BNPL, the cost of that button was built into what you paid. The button is free to the person who clicks it. The rest of us are paying for it, one invisible markup at a time. That is the first layer. There are more. And they are all invisible. 5 years ago, Buy Now Pay Later was a footnote. In 2019, the 5 largest BNPL companies in the United States issued about $2 billion in loans combined. To understand what issued loans means here, each time someone clicked Pay in 4, the BNPL company was fronting the full purchase price to the retailer, then collecting repayment in installments from the consumer. By 2021, it was $24 billion. By 2024, it crossed $82 billion. That is a 4,000% increase in 5 years. In 2023 alone, the top 6 providers issued 335 million individual BNPL loans. That's roughly 1 for every American adult. The companies running this are not startups. Affirm trades on the New York Stock Exchange. Klarna went public in September 2025 at a valuation of $19 billion. Afterpay was acquired by Jack Dorsey's company Block, which is the parent of Square and Cash App, for $29 billion. PayPal runs its own version inside the same account that 429 million people already use. They are embedded everywhere. The checkout for over 1 million online retailers has BNPL built directly into its payment system. This infrastructure sits between the consumer and the purchase on hundreds of millions of transactions, but the way it makes money and who it makes money from is rarely explained. Today, we'll reveal how the system actually works. The moment a consumer clicks the BNPL button, a transaction happens that most consumers never see. The retailer pays the BNPL company a fee. Typically, it runs between 4 and 8% of the purchase price. To understand the scale of that, when a retailer accepts a standard Visa or MasterCard payment, they pay only around 2 to 3%. BNPL costs them roughly twice that, sometimes even more. And for 0% interest BNPL products, the fee is often at the high end of that range. This is because the BNPL company is giving up interest revenue to offer 0%, so it charges the merchant more to compensate. Now, why would any retailer agree to that? The answer is sales volume. Stripe tested BNPL across 150,000 online shopping sessions and found revenue increased by up to 14%, largely from customers who said they couldn't have bought without it. The math works for the retailer, so the retailer takes the deal. Now here is the structural problem. The Reserve Bank of Australia formally investigated this constraint and ruled it anti-competitive. They're finding if retailers were allowed to pass the BNPL fee directly to BNPL users, half of those users would switch to a cheaper payment method. The no surcharge clause exists to prevent exactly that. The result? In many cases, it raises prices for everyone. A 2025 survey of over 2,500 e-commerce retailers found 63% described BNPL fees as a serious threat to their profitability. 1 in 3 retailers respond by raising baseline prices across all transactions to cover the gap. The consumer who clicked Pay in 4 pays nothing extra. But the consumer who paid by debit, cash, or a basic credit card pays the gap too. It's built invisibly into the price of the item, and the consumers who don't use BNPL tend to be the ones who can least afford the extra cost. Lower income households, people who pay cash, people already locked out of credit. The button is described as free. The cost is real. The question is, who is concentrated at the receiving end of it? The industry's public narrative is that BNPL serves financially savvy customers who prefer flexibility and convenience. The federal data tells a different story. The Federal Reserve runs an annual survey of American household finances. In 2024, it asked BNPL users directly why they used the product. 58% said it was the only way they could afford the purchase. And among users earning under $50,000 a year, that number was 72%. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau spent several years building a picture of who the typical BNPL borrower actually is. The findings are consistent across multiple reports. The average BNPL user has $3,887 in savings outside of retirement accounts. For context, the average person who does not use BNPL has $15,868. 1 in 4 BNPL users has no savings at all. Nearly 70% are already carrying a credit card balance they haven't paid off, taking on a new BNPL loan while existing credit card debt sits unpaid. The industry frequently argues that BNPL is serving people who have been shut out of the traditional banking system. The CFPB investigated this claim and found the opposite. BNPL users generally do have access to traditional credit. They are not locked out. They are maxed out. 45% of all BNPL originations go to borrowers with credit scores below 580, the floor most lenders will not go below. 61% go to borrowers who are subprime or deep subprime combined. Black and Hispanic adults are twice as likely to use BNPL as white or Asian adults. This is not a value judgment about the people using the product. It is an identification of who the product is actually built for, because that shapes everything about how the business model behaves. The industry built something that concentrates among the most financially vulnerable households in the country. The question is why? The merchant fee is not a one-time event. It's collected on every single transaction. The revenue model runs on volume, and volume means repeat borrowers. In 2022, the average BNPL borrower took out 9.5 loans in a single year. 20% of users were taking out more than one loan per month. 63% were carrying multiple BNPL loans at the same time, and 33% had active loans from more than one BNPL provider simultaneously. This is called loan stacking, accumulating debt from multiple sources before the earlier debts are settled. And it happens at scale in BNPL because of a structural blind spot. Most BNPL loans are not reported to credit bureaus. That means when Klarna approves a new loan, it cannot see how many active Affirm loans the borrower is already carrying. When Afterpay approves a transaction, it has no visibility into the borrower's Klarna balance. Each company sees only its own piece. The borrower's total debt load is invisible to the lenders, to the credit system, and sometimes to the borrower themselves. By 2024, the stress was showing up in the data. 24% of BNPL users were late on at least one payment that year, up from 18% the year before. The FEE is not a funding mechanism that happens to enable the free product. The FEE is the product. The zero interest, the simple interface, the frictionless checkout, these are what make shoppers take the loan. The loan is what gets sold, and the borrower's distress is what makes them keep taking the loan. Now we get to the layer of the story that almost no coverage of BNPL has explained. When most people think of a lender, they picture an institution that holds the loan it makes. The bank gives you a mortgage, and for the next 30 years, your monthly payment goes back to that bank. If you default, the bank takes the loss. So the bank has a direct incentive to make sure you can actually repay before it lends. BNPL companies operate differently. They make the loan, then sell it. Once the loan is sold, the profit is booked and the loan leaves their balance sheet. Like a dealership that finances your car and immediately sells your debt to a stranger, their incentive was closing the deal, not whether you could afford it. Affirm. became the first point-of-sale lender to package and sell its loans through a formal financial structure in July 2020. It's called an asset-backed securitization. Since then, Affirm alone has issued over 20 of these packages, selling more than $10 billion in consumer loans to institutional investors. Who is buying? The names are in Affirm's own investor documents. The Canada Pension Plan Investment Board, which manages the retirement savings of millions of Canadian workers. Prudential Insurance, Liberty Mutual, Sovereign Wealth Funds, over 130 distinct institutional investors across Affirm's funding channels alone. The loans are sorted into tranches and ranked by how safe they are considered to be. The top layer gets the highest possible safety rating, AAA, the same rating as a U.S. Treasury bond. Pension funds and insurance companies, institutions legally required to hold only the safest assets, are buying the AAA layer. What the rating does not say is what the collateral actually is. The scale of pre-committed purchases tells you how industrialized this has become. Sixth Street committed to purchase up to $4 billion in future Affirm loans over 3 years, loans that had not yet been originated when the deal was signed. Klarna committed $6.5 billion in U.S. installment loans and separately £30 billion in UK receivables to hedge fund Elliott Advisors. PayPal sold its entire European BNPL portfolio to KKR through a structure covering up to $75 billion in future receivables, and separately sold $7 billion in U.S. BNPL loans to Blue Owl Capital. Now look at the full picture from the borrower's position. The borrower earning under $50,000, with savings near zero, credit cards close to the limit, uses BNPL because it was the only way they could afford the purchase. Within weeks, their loan is inside a AAA-rated financial package owned by a pension fund managing retirement savings for workers who have no idea their fund is invested in it. The loan carries an average interest rate of 23.8%. Its average lifespan is about 4.5 months. Then it is paid off or written off, and a new loan takes its place. In fiscal year 2025, Affirm earned $381.6 million in profit, specifically from selling loans, recognized at the moment of sale, before the borrower has made a single payment. Once the loan is sold, Affirm's financial outcome is settled. Whether the borrower repays smoothly or struggles through 8 autopay attempts and a stack of bank fees, Affirm has already been paid. The math does not describe a lending product. It describes a supply chain, and the borrower is the raw material. When a BNPL auto payment fails, most borrowers assume the company will notify them. It does not work that way. About 90% of BNPL users link a debit card to automatic payments. When a payment fails, the BNPL company goes directly to the bank account and tries again. According to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, BNPL providers attempt to reauthorize failed debit payments up to 8 separate times per installment. Each failed attempt against an overdrawn account can trigger a non-sufficient funds fee from the bank. The standard charge is around $35. 8 attempts on an overdrawn account is potentially $280 in bank fees, on top of the missed payment itself. Those fees are charged by the bank, not by the BNPL company. The BNPL company does not collect them, does not include them in its reported delinquency rates, and is not required to disclose them to the borrower before the loan is issued. When the 8th attempt finally clears, the BNPL company records a successful payment. Its statistics look clean. The borrower's bank account has been drawn down by $280 in fees that appear nowhere in the BNPL company's disclosures. Researchers at the National Consumer Law Center found that when those bank penalties are included, the total cost to the borrower can reach the same level as credit card interest. The product marketed as an alternative to credit card debt produces credit card level costs. It's just split across 2 different institutions' books, so it's invisible in both. And because BNPL loans are largely invisible to credit bureaus, a borrower carrying 8 or 9 simultaneous loans across multiple providers is building a financial crisis that no lender can fully see. Each BNPL company sees only its own exposure. The bank sees the overdraft fees, but not the total BNPL load producing them. The system works precisely because the costs are distributed across multiple companies, multiple statements, and multiple reporting frameworks. No single institution has the full picture, including the borrower. And there's a third revenue stream running through the same transaction that none of those institutions are reporting either. Every time a BNPL transaction happens, the company records everything. What was bought? for how much, by whom. What the consumer searched before buying, what they browsed and didn't buy, and what they purchased the next time. Klarna disclosed in its IPO filing that it collects more than 2.5 billion individual product-level data points every year across its 111 million active users. On top of that, it built an advertising platform called Klarna Ads Manager. It gives merchants the ability to target Klarna's own customers with ads. The merchant pays the checkout fee, then pays again, separately, to reach the same customer through Klarna's advertising system. Klarna's advertising revenue went from $13 million in 2020 to $180 million in 2024, almost a 14-fold increase in 4 years. It is the fastest growing part of the business. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau found that BNPL companies collect borrower data and use it to increase the likelihood of incremental sales and maximize the lifetime value extracted from each customer. The goal is not a single transaction. It is a permanent, monetizable relationship with the borrower across lending, advertising, and every transaction in between. And because BNPL companies operate as financial institutions, their data practices often fall outside the consumer privacy protections that would apply to a regular retail website collecting the same information. The borrower has fewer privacy rights dealing with a BNPL company than they do dealing with a clothing brand. Here is the complete picture in one transaction. A borrower earning $38,000 a year, with $3,887 in savings and a credit card close to its limit, clicks Pay in 4 to cover something she could not afford outright. The retailer pays a 4 to 8% fee. Because of the no surcharge clause, that cost is distributed invisibly across the prices paid by every customer in the store, including those who never clicked the button and never will. The loan is packaged within weeks and sold to the Canada Pension Plan, or Prudential, or a sovereign wealth fund. These are institutions managing retirement money for workers who have never heard of this transaction and have no idea it's where part of their savings is invested. The borrower's browsing history, purchase behavior, and customer interactions are recorded and sold as advertising inventory. Merchants pay to target her again. If her auto payment fails, the system attempts to pull the money 8 times. Each attempt can overdraw her account. Each overdraft costs $35. The BNPL company records a repayment. The $280 in bank fees appears on nobody's BNPL disclosure, and the next loan is already available. The average user will take out 9.5 this year. None of this requires any single party to act in bad faith. Pension funds are doing their job, generating returns for retirees. Banks charge overdraft fees because that is their fee structure. Retailers accept BNPL because the sales numbers justify it. BNPL companies build the most profitable product the regulatory environment permits. The outcome is produced by the alignment of those incentives. Every participant in the chain benefits most when a financially constrained borrower repeats the transaction. The system does not need to be designed with malicious intent. It just needs each part to follow its own logic. In the United Kingdom, regulators concluded that logic needed a constraint. In February 2026, the Financial Conduct Authority published final rules subjecting BNPL to full consumer credit regulation, affordability checks, formal dispute resolution, and mandatory credit reporting. Those rules take effect July 2026. In the United States, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau attempted to bring BNPL under the same consumer protection rules as credit cards in May 2024. The Trump administration withdrew that rule in May 2025. As of this recording, no equivalent federal regulation exists. What changed between 2019 and 2025 was not that Americans became worse at managing money. What changed is that a sophisticated 4-layer extraction infrastructure was built, placed inside the checkout screen of every major retailer in the country, and concentrated specifically among households with the least financial cushion to absorb the hidden costs. The headline says, "Buy now, pay later." What the evidence shows is that if you have shopped anywhere at all, you have been paying whether you clicked it or not. And the borrower who did click it has been paying in ways that appear on no single statement, in no single company's disclosures, and in no single regulator's line of sight. Fair Margin investigates how money really moves. We peel back the veils and reveal the mechanism behind it all. If you want to understand the quiet rules that decide who wins and who pays, subscribe.